The New York Yankees started off their season with a series win against the San Francisco Giants. The Giants did not have Arson Judge, and the Yankees did have Aaron Judge. Um, and the Yankees won the series. They had two games where they shut out the Giants, and the other game they did give up 7 runs. And we are going to discuss the Yankees pitching staff here on this Bleacher Brawls Yankees YouTube video. So let's waste no time. Let's dive straight into it. My name is Derek. I'm here with John. You are watching Bleacher Brawls, and let's get straight into it. So let's start with the opening day starter, Gerrit Cole. Obviously, he just shoved, flat out shoved. Was amazing for the Yankees. 6 innings, only gave up 3 hits, no runs, 11 strikeouts. If you're looking for an ace performance on opening day, that's got to be what you ask. You can't ask for too much more than what Gerrit Cole did.
Derrik Cole broke the Yankees opening day record for strikeouts in a game. I believe he broke that. Gerrit Cole pitched great for the Yankees. He came out. This is what Gerrit Cole is. He's going to come out. He's going to give you 6 or 7 strong innings. Even if he doesn't have his best stuff, you're still going to get at least 6 innings out of him. It was a good way to start the season. Boone pulled him at 95 pitches, which I thought was good. There was no reason to go over 100 this early in the season. The game was kind of wrapped up anyway, it felt like. So all in all, I was really happy with Gerrit Cole's performance.
Yeah, and he really kind of piggybacked that win for the Yankees. Obviously, they still scored, but it wasn't like their offense did nothing. But when you have your ace go out and he gives you 6 strong, no runs, and you can get into the back end of a really strong bullpen, which I think we've talked about before. And even me as a Red Sox fan, I love the Yankees bullpen in terms of productivity. I think it is one of the best bullpens in baseball. And they didn't even bring in necessarily their quote unquote best guys from last year, I guess, in a sense, where there was no Clay Holmes and there was no Michael King. Yet they bring in Wandy Peralta, Jonathan Loaisiga, Ron Marinaccio, and those guys just shut the door and and also Marinaccio going 2 innings as well. They shut the door on the Giants, and I think it really kind of showed that this Yankees team, when they're going and the pitching staff is going, they're going to be hard to score off of.
Yeah, I mean, and this was just a great way to open it. And Cole showed you what he can do at the top of the rotation. Again, when you said they get into the bullpen, I mean, that's a really solid 3 guys to come after Cole. Peralta, Loaisiga, and Marinaccio are all really good relievers. And I am excited to see what this bullpen does for the rest of the season. Because as we get into game 2, I think I have some thoughts on that.
Yeah, we'll get to game 2 in a second, though, because I do want to kind of jump to game 3 and talk about the success the Yankees pitching staff had there as well. Because Johnny Brito may start. Was it his MLB debut? Or
I believe so. Yes. He's never pitched in the majors before.
And me and you have talked. I don't know if we talked on air about this, but I really like Johnny Brito as a prospect. I think he's better than some of the prospect rankings show. Maybe not. Maybe he doesn't have the highest ceiling out of every prospect, but I think there is a pretty high floor with him, and I think he's a guy who could be in an MLB rotation even as of now, maybe. And he went out and proved that he can be a good pitcher for the Yankees. 5 innings, only giving up 2 hits, no runs, only walked 1 guy, 6 strikeouts. And if you're the Yankees, you're looking at a guy who you're pretty much basically calling up from AAA. Well, they actually did call him up from AAA. And you're just going out and saying, hey, give us a chance to win. And he gives you 5 innings, a shutout ball. That's another thing. You cannot complain about that if you're the Yankees, too. A lot of injuries to this rotation, and you get a guy like a Johnny Brito to step up. I think that's huge for the Yankees.
Yeah, I really liked his debut because, as you said, like he's kind of I think he's more of an underrated prospect, like we've talked about. And he pitched mostly in high A and double A. I think he did pitch in triple A, but only a handful of starts. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's what it is. What I like about him is in his scouting reports is that, like you said, 1 walk. He's a control pitcher. And he pitches to contact and gets a lot of weak contact, which I like with the Yankees. I think they need that. They just rely too heavily on strikeout pitchers in the past. Like, I like the fact that they use a crafty lefty like Cortez, a crafty righty like Brito. And then he had the 6 strikeouts. Like, there was actually a lot of swings and misses in that game, which I wasn't anticipating. based off everything I've heard about this guy. So it's exciting. It's really exciting to see a good young pitcher come out. I'm excited to see what else he can do going forward. I think it's unfortunate, because it's a roster maneuver. It's nothing against him, but to come out, have a major league debut, pitch that good, and then you get down back to AAA in a roster move. It's unfortunate. Maybe they're just trying to limit his innings as well. I know the Yankees are big on that, but I do look forward to seeing him because we're going to see him back in the major league club and soon enough, as soon as they need him. And I'm excited to see what he can do in his next start. And a lot of people kill the Giants starting lineup. I mean, I've heard people saying their starting lineup was abysmal. I don't think they're the best starting lineup in Major League Baseball, but they do have some pretty legitimate hitters in there. I don't think they're as bad as some people were calling the New York sports radio and saying, maybe some sports radio hosts were saying. So that was impressive too, because I think Brito handled himself really well with the heart of that Giants lineup, which is still pretty good in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the Giants don't have a bad lineup. I mean, no offense to Cincinnati Reds fans, but the Reds lineup is not good. Like, yeah, Will Myers is your best hitter, I think, or maybe Jonathan India. Like or like the Oakland A's. I love me some Tony Kemp, but if Tony Kemp's in the argument for best hitter on your team, ooh, that's rough, right? The Giants don't have a bad lineup. Like you said, not the best lineup. Not terrible lineup. Brito actually last year, well, I'll even talk about his last 2 years. 2021, he pitched 14 games in high A with a 2.57 ERA, got called up to double A, pitched 8 games, a 5.01 ERA. Not great, but it's not always about the ERA, especially in the minors. And then, but in 2022, he really kind of showed up in the minors in 2022 because he got that kind of, I'm not gonna say second chance in double A, but what I mean more of like a second go around of it at double A. And 8 starts in 2022 in Double A, 2.36 ERA. Called up at Triple A, he made 18 appearances in Triple A last year, 15 starts, 70 innings, 3.31 ERA. And he was solid. He was definitely solid. 24 walks and 70 innings. That's solid as well. This guy's gonna pound the strike zone. He's gonna pound the strike zone. He's not gonna strike out a gazillion guys, but he'll get a job done for you. And for a guy who has a 4-pitch mix. And it's a guy who, like I said, I think can be in a major league rotation even as soon as this year. And I think the Yankees having him, I think, is very underrated. And the fact that he's on the 40-man and there was never any talk of Brito getting DFA'd or anything like that shows that the Yankees do have faith in him. And the fact that when all these guys get injured with the Severino and Rodon and Montas and even Nestor Cortez having that injury at the start of spring training, they didn't panic because they obviously have Clark Schmidt, you have Domingo Germán, but they also know they do have Johnny Brito. And I think that them not panicking, I think showed that they have faith in Brito.
Yeah, I mean, what I like about him as well, like you said, pounds the strike zone, so he's not wasting pitches. And like he had a I have it right here, a pretty low pitch. He only threw 76 pitches in 5 innings, which is pretty good. A guy like that, what I like about him, one, is if he's pitching to contact, keeping his pitches down, or like pitch count down, he's going deeper into games. So now you have Cole and another guy that can maybe ease up on the bullpen. Though I think in general, for the most part, this Yankees rotation has the ability to go deep into games. Most of these pitchers do. That's good. And then it makes me wonder, and I don't know the analytics on this, so this is just coming off the top of my head, but I know analytically you don't want your starting pitcher facing the lineup. Like the average is going to go up each time through the lineup, and a lot of times the Yankees don't like their starting pitchers going through a lineup a third time. Like Cole's allowed to do it, but they try to limit how much they were doing it. And I think a guy that's pitching the contact, that kind of allows you to go deeper because, strikeout pitchers, I think it affects more the more you see them. But if you're pitching
power pitchers more so.
Zone, what?
It's more so power pitchers.
Yeah, the power pitchers, the strikeout pitchers, like what the Yankees do. Like that's exactly it. Like the more you're facing them, the more you're going to catch on to you're going to get the timing. Whereas a guy that's just throwing, changing speeds and angles, like he's going to be able to trick hitters no matter how many times you see him.
Yeah, and I think too we got to talk about when we talk about Brito that velocity jump he had in 20 heading into 2023 into 2022. I think is a big thing, because his fastball jumped up to it jumped up to 94, 96 with topping out at 98, which yeah, have that in your back pocket. Now it's not like guys can't be successful with like 90, 92, but that extra velo does help, and it also does help the secondary pitches. Um, but we talked about Brito a lot, and I think it is fair. Let's move on to the bullpen, because, well, excluding the second game, the bullpen went 3 innings in the first game, and they went 4 innings in the third game. That's 7 innings. The bullpen didn't give up any runs. I think if you're just looking at the first and third game, you look at the bullpen. They had Cordero Marinaccio and Colton Brewer, who former Red Sox, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but so they had those guys pitching those first 2 games. I think if you're looking at this from a Yankee perspective, I think you got to be happy with the bullpen, with the exception of Michael King and Clay Holmes in game 2. Although it's one game for those guys as well, so it's not the end of the world that they had one game that wasn't great, right?
Yeah, I fully agree. Like I'm not really worried about Michael King that much, a little bit, but let's see like how it goes because it is his first game pitching in, he got hurt what in June last year, July maybe, like he went down pretty early, hasn't pitched in a while. There might be a little rust. It's not the worst thing in the world. I think he'll bounce back. Clay Holmes, I'm starting to be concerned if this is a trend or not because he did struggle at the end of last season. He did struggle in the playoffs, and then he comes out and he struggles his first start out. It's a little concerning. I know we're really not going to talk about it in this episode, but he did come out and pitch pretty well tonight against Philly. Um, but in that game, there was definitely a little bit of concern about just I don't know what to expect out of Clay Holmes. I know you're a big fan, but and I was a fan, but now I'm just worried about the guy. I just don't know what to expect every time he takes the mound.
Yeah, it's definitely you look at it and it's a little I don't know how to feel about Clay Holmes just in terms of but it's one game, right, at the same time. So like yeah, there were some signs last year Holmes maybe was due for a little bit of regression, but like I said, one game. So one game is literally the smallest sample size you can have, and you start looking at that. It's Clay Holmes might not. You could Clay Holmes might have 10 games in a row now when he's really good, and people are going to forget about his first game of the season, right? The only thing I think some relievers have said this in the past, and it's the worst thing for relievers having a bad start to a season. Because if your ERA goes up, balloons up to 4 or 5 at the start of the season, you might get it down to 3 at the end of the season, but people are going to act like you were a 4 ERA pitcher because they saw your ERA at 4 for the first half of the whole first half of the season, right? So that's the only other. It's where I think if a guy like a Clay Holmes struggles for the first half but turns it around in the second half, I think that is something that you have to look at and go. You have to split the two, and that's the only thing I bring up with relievers. Is if your reliever is really good at the first half of the season, and then a little bit like Clay Holmes last year, falls off a little bit near the end of the year. You look at him and you're talking about him like he's a 2 ERA reliever or a 1 ERA reliever, and his ERA is really closer towards the 3 range, right? I don't know exactly what his ERA last year. I'm just kind of but you get the point though. So for relievers, especially too, and how people view them, it is good to get off to a good start. So King and Holmes, not great starts, but they can figure it out, right? And I think that's the big thing. It's only one game, small sample size. Sometimes people look into a small sample size as too much, which is why I think, like I said, that's why I brought up the whole reliever thing of you have a bad start, it takes forever to turn it around because you don't pitch as many innings in terms of your ERA is always bloated when you come into games, and people are like, oh, this reliever has a 4.20 ERA or 4.49 ERA or whatever the number is, and people just going, oh, that guy's not having a good season. Whereas really, no, his first two appearances, he got lit up, and then he's been fine after, right? I think that's the only thing to keep in the back of your mind with, especially with the relievers, because the Yankees do have a really good bullpen. So don't let one bad appearance kind of ruin everything, because we saw it last year with Josh Hader. he was good for basically the whole season with the exception of like 5 or 6 appearances. And those 5 or 6 appearances ballooned his ERA to like 5. Josh Hader's not a 5 ERA pitcher. He's not. So I think that's also something to keep in mind with these Yankees relievers who maybe struggle early. Relievers in general get a small sample size anyways. They only pitch 50, 60 innings a year. They have two or three bad appearances. Relax, don't push it. But also 2 goes for good appearances, Don't start claiming they're the best reliever in the league when they just only had 2 appearances in the year 2. But overall, I think this Yankees pitching staff definitely has a lot of bright spots, and even the kind of lower spots with Clark Schmidt struggling and King and Holmes struggling a little bit. I still think you go and okay, well, we still think these guys can turn it around. I think that's what the Yankees are telling themselves. Like they still have a feeling where they can turn it around because their bullpen goes 7-8 deep. Their rotation, when everyone's healthy, goes 5 deep. Their pitching staff, when everyone's healthy, they should be fine, and their pitching should win them a lot of games like they did in this series because their pitching won them 2 of the games.
Yeah, I really do see the pitching as the strength of this team, and like you said, again, to follow that up too with ballooning ERAs, you really have to look at when you're judging relievers, you really have to look at a game log and see how you just can't use regular pitching statistics to judge a reliever. Like judging a reliever based off ERA is not fair. But if you're looking at game by game, like the game logs, like yeah, did they have a bad outing? Like how many days off did they have in between, or did they pitch 3 days in a row? I mean, you really have to break down what a reliever is doing on a day-to-day basis to have a good idea if that reliever is a good reliever. It's tough to judge relievers off the numbers, and I think we'll figure it out one day, and we're working towards that. But yeah, it's just unfair when that happens and a reliever has a bad outing and then gets kind of tagged for the rest of the season as a high ERA guy when it's not really a fair thing.
Yeah, because I now this guy wasn't like I always brought it up last year with a guy like Emmanuel Clase. After the first month after April, he had a 4.91 ERA. But at the end of the year, his ERA was what was it? It was like 1.36. Like now, and that's why I like when he asked me, I always say Clase is the best closer in baseball because after April, he was the best closer in baseball in my opinion. I think he had like a sub 1 ERA, or I think he had just under 1 or just barely over 1 ERA from the end of from if you take out April last year. And that's why I say with relievers, if they have a bad April or whatever, don't worry. That's not time to panic. And if guys are having good Aprils, that's great. But don't jump the gun too because the Yankees bullpen is deep. If Clay Holmes has a bad month, let's say Ron Marinaccio is going to step up, right? And then if Michael King has a rough month, Wandy Peralta might step up. Then if Wandy Peralta has a rough month, Abreu will step up, right? I think this is a Yankees bullpen that they have enough guys in there where they're fine regardless of if a guy has a bad stretch or whatever. And that's why I bring that whole thing up is this Yankees bullpen is going to be very good. I think their rotation is going to be good as long as they stay healthy. And the Yankees, that's a real strength of this team, that pitching staff. Any final thoughts on their pitching staff before we wrap this up?
I was very happy with what they did, and I hope they can carry it on throughout the season. This team does look very locked in. The pitching staff looked very locked in, and I hope that carries on throughout the entire season.
All right, there it is. Your first Yankee show of the 2023. I almost said 2022. That would have been bad. The first Yankee show of the 2023 regular season. Make sure to check out all of Bleacher Brawls links in the description. The Bleacher Brawls website, podcast, Instagram, Twitter, and all the crew's Twitters are down in the description. Make sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and let us know your thoughts in the comments about this Yankees pitching staff, especially when it comes to their first series and even the rest of the games as this gun's going out on Tuesday. So let us know your thoughts on that. You'll probably have seen another game or two by then. So let us know your thoughts. For John, my name is Derek. Thanks for tuning in to Bleacher Brawls, and we'll see you next time.